Alright, today we're going to take a lit tree that I got at Walgreens that pulsates orange and UV or purple LEDs and make it more compatible with your display in case you don't run batteries. This runs, I already unscrewed the battery cap, 3 AAAs, so it's 4.5 volts. I bought this tree because it's flat, as you can see. So in a display, you can put it against the back wall instead of having something that's three-dimensional and it puffs out and you can't put it up against a wall, as an example. So that's why I got this one. The bats are just a little touch they add. If you don't like them, they're just held on with basically twist ties. So you can take them off. But I'm not a big fan of the pulsating lights. I'm probably going to keep some pulsating, maybe like the orange, and just leave the purples on solid. So to do this, I've already started. To make it a little faster video, you take out all the screws. There's 4 longs, 1 short. Short screw is the battery cap because it doesn't stay in without it. That new safety requirement for children type thing. And then there's a screw in each one of these standoffs. So to make life a little faster, took them off in advance. When you open it, you have a little circuit board right there, the little timing chip, your on-off switch, and then that right here is for the test button. You know, it says try me now, and it plugs in right there. I threw it out once I bought the tree. I didn't even think of keeping it to show you, but I'm sure you've all seen them before. So, in most cases, UV lights aren't on the same string as like the reds or oranges because they draw more power. And in this case, it's the same thing. There are 4 thin black wires right here. 2 go to the orange, 2 go to the purple or UV. And next to them, get some more light on the subject first. There we go. In here you have 2 resistors, an 82 and a 47 ohm. Those are those little flat guys right there on the side. You got your timing chip. You have a transistor and 2 small capacitors that go across the legs of the timing chip, which help provide the fade in and fade out of the lights. So one would be for the purple, one would be for the orange, because they're wired separate from each other because of the voltage differences. We'll show you the voltage differences. DC. So the battery pack, just so you can see, is 4.5 volts, give or take a little bit. And we have, it's going to be a little harder to see, you have next to this white wire, which is the negative off the battery pack, there is 2 solder pads. Each one has a single black wire. And then to the left of it is a solder pad with 2 black wires, which is the negative, or both are common together for the purple and the orange. So if we go from negative to 1, you're going to see it go up and down. It's peaking at about 1.8, 1.9 volts, 1.85, 1.89. So and if I go to the pad next to it, still with the other one on, you're going to get 2.5 or 2.6. 2.6. Reason being is orange LEDs, I've discussed this in the past, the color orange usually runs between 1.8 and 2.2 volts. Anything above that, they'll burn out. Anything below that, they usually don't come on, or they're really dim. And that's how they get the fading effect, is they drop the voltage down, as you saw, to about 0.8 volts. And that's why the LEDs get they're almost inconceivably light that you can see with your eyes. The UV lights draw a lot of power in comparison to other LEDs. They'll usually run 3 to 3.5 volts. Some of the Lower grade ones will run just under 3, which is why this is going about 2.8. So I want to make my purple ones solid and my orange ones fade. So there's 2 resistors. One says 470, one says 820. 470 means 47 ohms with no additional multipliers, meaning it's not 470, 47,000. And then the 820 is 82 ohms. And to show you this, just so you see, turn off the power, set it over to ohms, and I'm going to go across the first one that says 470. $46.9 ohms. And the second one next to it, which says 820, 82.1 ohms. There'll always be a little variation. Most resistors have a plus or minus 1, 5, or 10% variance. The 82 ohm would be for the orange because it's a lower power rating, so it needs more resistance. The 47 ohm would be the UV because it needs a higher power range or a lower resistance. So to stop it from pulsating, I need to take the wire out of the circuit, off the circuit board, get another 47 ohm resistor, and just wire it like to the switch, which will keep the purples on and still allow the oranges to fade in and out. At the same time, if you put this in the display and you don't want to keep swapping out batteries and turning it off and on with a switch, if you, depending on how you have it wired, mine's wired to a big bank of switches. I just flip one switch and it can turn them all on, or I can do it individually. You can get a barrel jack. You can get them on eBay. Amazon, they usually come in like 5 or 10 packs. And this one is the style where it's just got 2 pins and a nut. You can see there's a lot of room inside this casing around the battery pack. If you do this, don't do it on the side with the circuit board. I would do it on one of the other sides. Probably the side facing away from the front of the tree so the plug's in the back. You drill a hole and you just feed this through, and then you bypass your battery pack. Or you can solder a wire to the switch so one side is battery, one side is power. So when it's the off position, you can power it through this, or the on position, you can power it through the battery. The Iron Man mask is an example. I show you how to do that, where you can take a off-on switch and make it so the on position is battery and the off position is AC power or DC adapted power with an AC adapter. So since I'm probably going to put this in my display and I want it against the backdrop, and because it's a flat tree, it will look kind of funny to sit in the middle of a display, and it's not 3-dimensional, it's got no really depth. I'm not going to sit there and lift it up and keep turning it on. So I'm going to, 1, change it from fading to solid on the UV or the purples, and 2, I'm going to solder in this and then drill a hole, which would go back here. So I'm just going to mark it so I know what side on both the back and the board. Generally, you're probably thinking, oh, it's the back of the tree, you should know. You'd be surprised how when you get into a project, you're not paying attention because you're either doing it all the time or you're preoccupied in your head. We all have that. And you drill the wrong side or you solder the wrong side. Everybody does it. It's called making a mistake. So my suggestion is to try and mark things. It makes it a little easier, and you're less likely to make a mistake. Doesn't mean you still won't, but it does happen. I don't know if all Walgreens still have this. This was on their 50% off after Halloween clearance sale. I picked it up on Halloween, the day of, and it was $7. It usually retails at $14. So So I know I need a 47 ohm resistor. Got some extra resistors I haven't put away yet sitting on top. So I'll pull out one of my resistor cases and see if I have a 47 ohm resistor in here. It's not a heavy, powerful device, so you don't need a large resistor. 1/8 watt or 1/4 watt resistors are fine. These are quarters. They're not going to get hot. And I don't have any 47s in here. I have the multiplier ones, 47,000 and 4.7K, which would be if I had like a 1 or a 2 or a 3 after the 47. So I'll go to my next one. And yep, they're in this case right here. So I'm going to just pull out a 47 ohm resistor. When you buy resistors, they usually come in multi-packs, and they come with all these little, they're all stuck together with pieces of paper at the end. It's hard to buy just one resistor. You'll end up buying 100 or 50, or a multi-pack that has 10 of each, and the most common sizes. So if it's something you do yourself, you may get a whole bunch, or you might get a variety pack. Or if you strip something else apart and you have an ohm meter, you can ohm out the resistors and use them from other equipment. Or you can read the color bands and look them up. If you don't know the color bands, you just do resistor color band search on Google, and it'll ask you to type in the bands. It'll show you which direction to look at the resistor bands, because if you put them in backwards, it gives you the wrong result. And it'll tell you what those bands are. Some of them are nice and say, we think you may have entered the bands from the percentage to the resistance, and they'll flip it for you because it's an odd value. Resistors come in specific values. They're pretty rare to get oddballs. There are out there, but they're not very common. So what I'm going to do is, because they're common at the ground part, just turn that back around so I have a little bit more room. I am going to cut it at the resistor, right where it's soldered on the pad. You can desolder it if you want. I'm not going to. I don't want to potentially melt anything next to it because they're so close. But if you use a 5-point soldering pen, you can do it. Also, this has a lacquer insulation. If you ever get fairy lights, you get the ones that have the rubberized or vinyl coating. This is the lacquer style where you can scrape it off with a fingernail or burn it off with a lighter. So, wire snipped just to make sure it's the right one. I should only have orange. Okay, just orange. And they still fade. And don't be afraid to do it. If you screw it up, you can generally fix it. What I'm doing now is I'm taking the snips. I'm not snipping it. I'm scraping off the lacquer style coating. It's not the vinyl or rubber or plastic coating. It's lacquer. And get the resistor. And turn on the soldering iron. That's kind of important too. So we know that the center pin is the power going to the board. And how you can determine this is you can put a voltmeter on it if you want, or we look from the battery pack. The battery pack goes over to here, and then it's on the left pin if you're looking at it this way. The center pin then goes to the circuit board, so this is the interrupter. So if I solder this to the center pin, and then right there, the light will just be on when the switch is flipped. So let me grab some heat shrink, because with all this long lead, I'm going to keep it long so I have some flexibility when I open this, or if I ever have to reopen this. Hopefully I don't, but everything breaks, everything fails. I'm going to get some heat shrink that I can slide over. And this isn't heat shrink in the sense that you get it hot. This stuff is braided material that you just slide over. If you get it hot, you'll make it smell really bad and melt it. It's just standard braided wire protector. So, get the solder. And I'm going to pre-tin the leads. Or try to. Just one side. Normally you don't bring the solder to it, you solder with it. So those are set. And where's that wire I trimmed? Actually kind of hard to see even with the extra light on in here. The black wire against the black background and the shadows makes it kind of difficult to see the wire. Alright, that side's on. Knock off the... If you solder a lot, you can either use a scrub or you just smack your or flick your soldering iron to get the extra bead off. I do it every once in a while on the videos. What I'm doing is I'm putting fresh solder on the original solder so I get a good solder joint. Hold it for a second, let the soldering stick away, and there we go. So now the orange lights are going to fade in and out, and my purple lights are going to stay on. They are slightly brighter than they were before. The reason being is I'm not losing as much of the signal through the chip. I am using a 47, and it probably has a variable resistance, meaning that the other one was 47.1, I believe. This one's probably 46 because the percentage difference. And we'll turn it back off. And if you see, I made a mistake. I didn't put my heat shrink on. So, like I was saying earlier, we all make mistakes. And just got to fix them. It's easily fixed. Quickly just desolder. And then resolder. There we go. And fade in and out. So, next step is this. It's going to get a little noisy when you drill a hole through the back of the plastic here. You can use the correct size drill bit. You can use a tape measure, micrometer, or if the drill bit generally fits inside this hole, it's going to be one size bigger because of the threads. When it fits inside the hole, it's fitting up to the threads. You need it bigger because the threads have to slide through. You can use a smaller drill bit and wallow the hole out. Like if I use this micro drill, I can sit there and spin it until the hole's the right size. There are people out there that will take that soldering iron and then shove it through, which does work, but it ruins the tips and it smells god-awful. But I've done it myself. Sometimes you got to do what you got to do with the stuff you got on hand. So, I believe all I have on me is my micro bits. So, I'll probably just use the micro bit and wallow out the hole. I am going to off-center the hair Reason being is I'm just going to use the wires from the test pins instead of soldering a whole bunch of new stuff in here. Desolder those, break the little tab of glue here, move them over to here. Now, what you want to do is make sure you have these pins right, that you have the correct polarity. Wrong polarity on most things won't hurt it the first time you do it, but you want to try and make sure that you always keep your polarity correct. So, if I remember right, the long pin is ground and the short pin is hot. So I'm on the long pin and I'm touching the outer casing, which is the negative. And as you can see, I have continuity. If I touch the center pin, I can touch the center pin without sliding off of it, which apparently I can't do. Let's try this. Because if I'm not touching the pin, I'm touching it with my finger. Here we go. It says OFL. Open. So the long pin on this style is the negative, or the outer ring, and the center pin is the short pin, or the short lead. Normally, most things with the symbols will have the center pin is hot and the outer ring is ground. Watch your polarity, because there are plugs that are reversed. That's why they have that little plus with a circle, then a C, and then a minus. That's telling you the polarity of the pin, so you don't get the wrong polarity plug. I know what mine is. That I knew the negative was the outer long one, because, well, I buy a lot of these from the same company, so they don't switch them up on me. So I'm going to wallow it out. It's going to be a little noisy. Sorry. We'll see if we can cut down on the noise in the editing so it doesn't burn your ears out or blow your speakers. So, that should be pretty close. Almost a little bit more and we're going to be good. Just like that. You can, like I said, do it the correct way, do it the incorrect way. Do it any way you want. I was just lazy. I didn't feel like stopping the camera and getting up and getting the drill bit the correct size, and then a drill, because the correct size drill bit won't fit in a micro drill. And I'm drilling plastic, which isn't going to really damage the bit too much. Cutting it in a circle, making the hole bigger. There's that. Use a small pair of needle nose to tighten it. Like that. So, as you can see, there's my power port. Desoldered my two leads. I saw the lights flicker because the two leads touch each other, which bypasses the switch, like that. Because I'm not going to have this run on batteries anymore. If I'm putting it in my display, nothing in my display runs on batteries. Everything runs off power, whether it's power from Limax adapters or power from other companies' adapters or generic adapters. Kind of like if you watch the house for the winner, for the contest in October, or by October, That contest winner, that AC adapter came from it was a 12-volt adapter, and if I remember right, it came from an old school set of cordless phones for a charging base. Right now I'm tinning the 2 pins. And the only thing I didn't do was I didn't grab a VMAX adapter to show this. I'm going to see if I have one lying around my bench real quick after I solder these 2 wires on. I'm going to use tweezers to get in there so I don't burn my fingers. Because it's inside the base here, so it's a little hard to get to. You can use needle nose pliers. The reason I'm using tweezers is they're thinner and they don't conduct heat or electricity because they're ceramic. The white part is. The black part is metal. It's anodized metal. Like that. There we go. Get the solder out of here. And we'll show you what it looks like. So you can see it's soldered in. Solder to the switch. Everything should tuck up inside. Just gonna bend the resistor lead a hair so it's not sticking out the side when I put the cover back on, like so. With it being offset, it allows me to solder those wires directly. If I put it in the center, I could have gotten in a bind, basically, because there's the switch and the little outcropping right there. So I can see it still runs fine with the batteries. So, in case you were thinking it broke when I closed it. Stick the screws back in and then grab an AC adapter to bypass the batteries. Two. And last but not least, number 4. So, there's the batteries. And you'll see the orange lights are fading in and out. Turn it off a little extra light here. And I have a VMAX 4.5 volt one right here for one of the ones I'm working on. Plug it in, and what I do is, so you can see, take the batteries out. That's not right. What happened? Uh-oh, maybe I got a bad adapter. This might have been one of the adapters I had sitting here that I was testing to see if it was a bad adapter. Well, I guess I'm going to have to pause the video to go get an adapter out of my display. Or I could probably voltage test this one. So, give me just a moment. I'll be right back. Alright, we're back. The adapter was fine. I double checked it with my meter and then checked my wall socket to make sure it didn't go out, since it's a power bank versus a standard plug in your wall. I opened it back up, found my mistake. When you use this port here, where the test button is, it uses the battery pack. So all I was trying to do is put power into the connections. I totally forgot I had to move the ground wire. So the ground wire is too short. It's this little black one, the black one I soldered on. So I took a piece of, it's purple, from the negative to the ground of the battery. So that was my bad. I was getting ahead of myself, getting all excited to get it done, and well, I screwed up. Easily fixed though. It was just look at the circuit and realize all I was doing when I flipped the switch to on was creating a short to the power supply because there's no batteries in here. It's not a, that switch was for the battery pack. So when you do this, just take your hot wire for your test pin as an example, go off the center or the switch side, and then just solder a negative or common wire to the battery pack or to the circuit board if you wanted. I just did the battery pack so I didn't have to heat the circuit board, and then run it over to your AC port. So yeah, screwed that one up. So I was talking about mistakes. Everybody makes them. Mine was getting ahead of myself, trying to get it done so it looked cool and not have a 4-hour long video. So there it is, running on the Limax power supply. So I can hook it into one of those multi-heads or a single. There it is. If I pull it off or push it back in, as you can see, there's no batteries. And let's see what it looks like in low light or some darkness. So there's low light, and I know that the UV lights kind of look blue on camera, or they have a bluish tinge. So there it is. And now I have a tree I'm going to put in my backdrop. So when I get finished with my display, because I've had a few people ask to see it, you'll probably see this when it lights up when I turn all the switches on to the different sections, because my display is zoned. I use a DJ mixing zone system that I can turn on sections or turn off sections depending on what I want to do. So there it is, the Walgreens tree. It's about $7.5 with tax. 2-dimensional flat tree basically for the backdrop, making the purple light stay solid, having the orange lights fade in and out to give it a little depth, and then changing it from battery operated to standard Limax power supply operated, so I don't have to continually change batteries or go find myself a different plug, since I have many of the multi-head adapters. So hopefully this helps you in the future. Don't make the same mistake I did. I could have edited out the mistake, but I don't see any reason why. Because if you tried doing exactly what I did, it would have done the same thing, because I didn't pay attention to the ground wire. So, but there it is. I'm going to screw the battery pack cover on just so there's no big hole in here. Also, if I stick this on a display, it is pretty stout base-wise, but you can put weight in here if you think it's going to be too tippy, if you have it on something that's not stable. Fishing weights. You could fill this with fishing weights and then put the cap back on. But it's pretty stable. I mean, it is top heavy, but the base is big enough to, keep it from tipping. So, but there it is, the Walgreens lit tree, or lighted tree as it says on their little card, converted from battery to AC adapter. You can still make it run on batteries if you want. You just have to put the wire on the other end of the switch. I show you how to do that in the Iron Man mask video, sorry. And then I changed it from every light pulsating to just one set of colors. And if you want to get creative, you can wrap different color fairy lights on here and do the same thing. As long as the fairy lights are rated for the voltage, you can actually solder them onto the board. Or you can solder them with another resistor prior to the resistor on the board. But you don't want to overload that little chip. It's rated for a certain amperage, and if you exceed it, you're gonna burn it out. But most fairy lights don't draw a lot of power. So anyhow, thanks for watching. Until the next one, we'll start with some standard Limax stuff again. There's more coming. I have half a dozen or so that are in the process of being repaired. So hopefully you enjoy. Hopefully it's educational. Hopefully it helps you out with your village, whether it be Halloween or Christmas or Americana, whatever your preference is. Hopefully this will assist you out. Have a good one.